Okay. Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to the March meeting of the East Oak Park Neighborhood Association. Excited for you all to be here. We have a couple guests this evening. We have a little bit of housekeeping work and announcements. Quickly looking at this, if anyone is interested in participating in a committee, please comment in the chat box. That would include either the summer picnic, which usually we start planning around June. That sounds right? Zig is hosting a neighborhood cleanup day, Saturday, April 20th from 11 to 1. So if you'd like to be involved with that, comment in the box or talk to Zig. Lindsay is also always looking for help with the flowers at Best Park and on Roanoke and the Oak Park Boulevard. Let's see. Treasury report. Cindy, do we have a treasury report?
Yes, of course we do.
Ooh.
And we currently have $541 even.
Wow. Let's go buy pizza.
Hey, stay tuned.
All these new options. Yeah, that's our business. Okay, so this evening we are welcoming Kelly Schmitz from HealthQuest and State Representative Regina Weiss. We're going to start with Kelly because I think she has a little blurb, right? And then move into Regina. And
yeah, that'd be great.
That sounds good. So welcome, Kelly.
Hello, how's it going, everybody? I'm Kelly from HealthQuest. So I won't take up too much of your time. I've known Dawn and her husband for probably 10, 12 years, and I've been lucky to know them actually. And she invited me and wanted me to kind of give you guys kind of a blurb of what we do. So I'm at HealthQuest Physical Therapy. We're at 9 in Livernois, in that big B Plaza. We opened up about 2 years ago, and I've been with HealthQuest since 2006, so a very, very long time. I thought I'm the southernmost clinic in Ferndale, which I thought was being underutilized and not really representing, people as a whole. So I wanted to go into a community where people just love people. And since I've opened, that's been proven to me over and over why I chose this place. So we're kind of like a multifaceted approach kind of person. No one fits in this tiny little box. Everybody fits in this whole thing with emotion and trauma and injury and chronic and acute, and we treat it all. And there's an emotional component to a lot of injuries, which is something that I really kind of deep down dive into, because pain is real and people's stories are real. So there's always a reason I get people in my door, and that's usually not just one thing. So, we offer free pain assessments for any sort of injury. So if someone's like, I don't know if I need PT, it's free to you. You come in, we examine you, we kind of take you through some things and kind of let us know, if you need a podiatrist, or if you need a doctor that you need to go to, or if you have questions or concerns, or, want to address that lingering back pain or whatever. It's kind of this free thing for you guys to have in your back pocket that makes you not feel like you're alone, right? And so, a lot of times I feel like people go to doctor's office and they're not heard, and that's kind of what we're really good at, is hearing people and trying to figure out a solution to get people back to doing what they love doing, which is living life and without pain. And we've been very lucky. We're in a strong community, and I just wanted to introduce myself because I'm starting to be, now that I'm not just by myself, starting to be able to get to the community a little bit more, which is my favorite part. It's just people and people in general. So that's my spiel.
We appreciate you coming to talk to us.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or?
So how do you charge for this, or how does that?
Well, so we have insurance. We're insurance based. Or there's cash-based options, but we take Medicaid, we take private insurances. We're really kind of one of the only clinics around that take Medicaid. And for me, that's a really important thing, because I feel people that get Medicaid don't get great care, just because they have Medicaid. So we use insurance, or we do cash-based. So Medicaid is a big one, because a lot of people, can't afford health insurances. So for me to provide a great service, top notch, whether you have Medicaid or Blue Cross or whatever, everyone's the same. Everybody that walks into our facility is family and friends. Really, honestly, it's not, you guys are never a number, and that's what I try to drive home.
Oh, I was a little bit tuned out, so sorry. But so are you a physical therapy company, or
Yep,
what is that?
clinic. Yep, we're Health Quest. We have 40 clinics in the Detroit metro area.
Okay, something like ATI or TC, whatever they are.
Yep, yeah, but we're just basically localized here, not throughout the country.
Okay, and you're right on 9 Mile, you said, by what?
Yep, by Big B. We're in that same plaza as Soapy Pete's, the
Oh,
Red
that Chinese
Olive and
restaurant?
T-Mobile.
what's that?
That Chinese restaurant's in there, right?
Yes, there's one of those too.
Yeah, where Livernois ends and Hong Kong begins. Yes, that is their slogan. Yes.
Okay, very good.
Very
Thank
jealous of that slogan.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
good to
So,
know.
Yeah, any way that I can serve the community is just makes it just anything that I can do. And if people have questions, that's what we're here for. So
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, and if you want to drop your contact stuff in the chat, that might be helpful.
Yeah, you want me to try to figure that out? My wife just left, so yes, I will drop it in there. I'm not that terrible.
I believe. Excellent.
Are
I
there
will
any
say I went
questions?
through some physical therapy last year with having some tendinitis, and it actually was really helpful. I can say that if you are experiencing pain, it's better to not be in pain.
Yeah.
Thankfully, our lives are just insane to the point where I'm like, yes, I think texting and doing everything I do in my life has caused crunchiness in my arms. And yes.
Right. Right. Yeah, texting. Yeah. Yes, bad for you.
Yes. Great. And Kelly, you're welcome to hang out this meeting. If you don't want to, you're welcome to leave us too, but we appreciate you coming and talking to us.
Yeah. Anybody else have any other questions? Totally. I mean, if you do, the phone number's on there. Again, free assessments, send your family, send whoever, we just want to try to help as many people as possible. Oh, John has a question.
So should people make an appointment for the assessment or just walk in?
Well, you can walk in if you want to see the place to see if it's kind of your vibe, which I always suggest because I feel like human connection is such a personal thing, and see if it's something that interests you. But if you want a free pain assessment, you can just call. My office will handle that. They'll get you on the schedule. I have 2 other therapists with me who are amazing. And then we have a whole crew, technicians and all that kind of stuff, but they'll schedule you. So if you want to make an appointment, you just call and say, I want a free pain assessment, and they will gladly
tell you if you are a pain or not. No,
yeah, right. I mean, yes, but if you have lingering stuff, anything is welcome. I've seen everything.
So I guess I'm going to ask you. So do you also have an X-ray machine and all this kind of stuff, or?
No, we're just a classic outpatient physical therapy. So we have tables, exercise equipment, a private treatment room. Everything's kind of in the open because it's a great way, again, for people just to be together and converse and talk and interact, which is just it's a big part of why people I think get better because they enjoy coming. So yeah.
Part mental and physical. It's part you say.
Huge. Yeah. The mental portion's a big portion. Yeah, absolutely.
What are your basic hours for appointments?
We're open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay.
Monday through Friday, and then we're open Saturday from 7 till noon.
Wow.
Yes. Yep. We're open. The 6 a.m.s go quickly, but we have a wider range, so it works for everybody. Yeah. It works awesomely, but I prefer the 6 a.m.s. I'm usually there at 4 anyways, but yeah, 6 a.m. When you've been doing it as long as I have, it's easy breezy. But yeah. So any other questions?
Oh, so you're
Zig, you muted yourself.
You muted yourself. There you go.
Oh, sorry. Are you the manager, owner, or?
I'm the owner. They gave those reins to me about 2 years ago. I've been with them for a really long time, and I didn't know if it was something I wanted to do, and then I did it, and it's been probably the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Okay, now we know the owner.
Yeah, yes, I'm a very big deal. Yeah. I'm not.
Well, that's good. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Really, honestly, I do.
Excellent.
You, Kelly.
Thanks, guys.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll see you on the streets too.
Just-
Can't miss
Or,
the hair,
or you
so.
can just stop in and say hi. She's,
You can.
yeah,
Yes, always. We are always there. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And also joining us tonight is State Representative Regina Weiss. I want to say we all know Regina, but at the same time, Regina, if you would like to give us a little background or anything that you'd like to share this evening. Sam
Yeah.
also did send out a list of questions, which hopefully everyone printed out like me, or has accessible somehow, that we hopefully will throw at you some of these questions and get some answers.
Sounds good. And yes, I wanted just a quick share a point of pride. I just realized that I have on my desk. This is a little throwback. If I can attach it. Do you remember these?
Oh, yeah.
My East Oak Park Neighborhood Association name tag. I live on Majestic, so if anyone didn't know. Yes, I'm pretty sure I know everyone on here, but if you don't know me, Regina Weiss, State Rep for House District 6. In my second term and currently chairing school aid. So the budget for our pre-K 12 schools for the state and the House and the Department of Education. And I also sit on a bunch of other committees, appropriations, several other subcommittees on appropriations. I vice chair the Judiciary Appropriation Committee. And then I also sit on education policy as well. And I'm the Labor Caucus chair for the legislature and the campaign chair as well. So I wear a lot of hats. And you all probably also know I'm got two little ones. You might see us sometimes walking down the street. Oscar and Lowen are both 16 months now, going on 17 months. So they are getting big. And you may hear them squealing in the background at some point.
It's really why all that construction's happening over there, is to cover the noise of the twins.
It is. Yeah, they like to look at the progress of their future school. They just like can see it out their window.
Nice.
But yeah, and was a teacher before I ran for state rep, and also was on Oak Park City Council before I ran. So education is the number one reason why I ran, and have been able to do a lot of really great things, particularly through the budget. We're also in budget season right now, so it's like it's our very busy time of year on appropriations, because this is the time of year that we're actually writing the budget. And so lots of meetings, lots of work, but I love it. It's my favorite thing about my job, is getting to work on the budget and getting to set our priorities for how we want to invest in our pre-K 12 system in the state.
Thank you, Regina.
It just sounds like so much work, and I barely understand what being on a committee involves, like in that regard.
It's a lot of meetings.
Yeah, but a lot of email too.
A lot of email, a lot of meetings, a lot of that.
Sam?
So you talked about, Regina, you talked about preparing the education budget, and yet we always hear about the governor's budget. So there's your budget, there's the governor's budget, there's another legislative body. That sounds like a mess.
It is a mess. And then I can tell you a little bit about how the sausage gets made. And but I will say that the good news is that the sausage ends up being delicious. So it usually works out well, at least in our current format. So you're absolutely right. So the governor's budget, the governor always releases her budget first. So we saw that a few weeks ago, governor released her executive recommended budget. But then we in the House, we write our own version of the budget. In the Senate, My counterpart in the Senate, they do the same thing. They write their own version of the budget, and then we all get together in conference committee and kind of fight it out. And if you've ever been in like union negotiations, I got to imagine it's probably pretty similar. It's a lot of screaming and shouting, like, which was interesting last time because I kind of just assumed, being part of that for the first time last year, that considering that everyone at the table was on in the same party, that it would be a little bit more I don't know how to say this, a little bit more collegial, a little bit nicer, but we really duked it out. But we ended up with a great budget, so I'm not begrudging the process. It worked out. We ended up in a really good place. And we're just getting ready for that again this time around. So we are going through the governor's budget right now, going through our budget from last year and putting together our House priorities, and the Senate's doing the same thing. And again, when we're done with that in about a month, we'll all get together, a little over a month. We'll all get together, and in about a month, we'll be reporting out our House recommended budget. And then about a month and a half after that, we'll be in negotiations and hopefully end in a really good place. Yeah, I know.
Zig.
So, oh yeah. So I'm happy to report that my understanding is every student is now able to spend up to $9,000 per year. Is that what the thing is? I think I read somewhere that. Is that right or not?
Sorry, every student.
Oh, each student's allowance as a pupil is up to 9,000.
Oh, yes. The per pupil allotment. We are over $9,000. Yeah.
Over nine, yeah.
So that's the amount of money that we spend that we send out to districts. The base level of funding is called the foundation allowance, or the per pupil allotment, and it's how much every single district gets for every student that they have. We've been underfunding that for forever, really, or at least for a very long time. We know that there was a study that was done back in 2018. It was updated again in 2021, called the School Finance Research Collaborative. And they put a price tag on what that base level of funding should be. The updated number in 2021 had us a little bit over 10,000 per pupil. We're a little bit over 9,000 per pupil right now. So we still have there's still a big gap there in that base level of funding, but it is much higher than it ever has been. And we were able to do a pretty substantive increase last cycle. We did a 6%, I believe, 6% increase in the foundation allowance last year.
How does that compare to other states? Or like, I mean, they have this, so there's a number that they set that should be there, right? And how do we, like, is everyone kind of below that, or
no? Every state's different, right? And in terms of where we fall in the pack, I will say that Michigan is, at least, I don't know if it's still true given a lot of the recent investments that we've made. It's probably not still true anymore given the recent investments that we made, but as of 2 years ago, Michigan was last in education, in growth, and like increase in the amount of money that we were spending over time into education. And so we've been behind on this for a long time. So there's a lot of investment needed to be able to catch up. But Michigan used to be one of the states that invested the most in education. Michigan used to have one of the best education systems in the country. We don't anymore. And we're trying to, it's going to be years and years of work to build out of that. But we're trying to make, at least through the budget in particular, trying to make a lot of critical investments so that we're setting the groundwork, the foundation to be able to get back to where we know we need to be. And that involves that base level of funding, but it's also about making sure we're investing money equitably to districts, into students who need it the most. So when you talk about like our at-risk students, our English language learners, our special education students, we want to make sure that they are getting proportionately more dollars invested over time to get them caught up quicker, because those buckets have been underinvested in for even like a longer period of time. And again, we know that that's where the greatest level of need is. So
So,
I could talk about school finance all night
yeah,
too, but if you
Well-
want to talk about other things, that's fine too.
well, that's what I say. So with that amount of money, each student might be able to get an iPad, and they should have toilet paper in every school. I mean, 5, 10 years ago, we were hearing about special schools in Detroit, especially no papers, no wall, the walls, the paint's peeling. No one should have that problem.
So a couple of things. So I taught in Detroit, as I mentioned, so I've seen that. I would bring my own toilet paper to school. So I know how that works. A lot of those problems are facility problems. And as we continue to increase investments into schools, we're not dealing with facilities at all. Facilities are totally dealt with at the local bond, like through local bonds and millages. And so that is totally dependent upon your local community's both ability and willingness to raise dollars to be able to meet those facility needs. And depending on the taxable value of your community, you might have a very high millage rate, but not generate very much revenue in order to be able to make those necessary improvements in those buildings. Or you may have a situation where a local community may choose not to. They may vote those bonds down, and then those buildings continue to crumble. So because of the way that our facility funding is structured, in Detroit in particular, they have a really hard time being able to raise money to meet some of those facility needs. With a lot of the COVID dollars, and again, specific to Detroit, they were able to leverage a lot of those dollars for facility needs, which is good. So that will help some of those districts be able to meet some of those immediate needs, but it's a problem across the state. And it's not just a Detroit problem, like it's really across the state, and a lot of rural districts also really struggle to meet their facility needs. And when I say facility needs, I mean what you were just talking about, Ziggy, like making sure their buildings are to code, not necessarily like making sure they have a state-of-the-art science center and performing arts center or whatever, just making sure that their buildings aren't leaking and they don't have rats and roaches running down the hallway. So we're still working, but that is still like, we haven't figured that out. That's going to require, when we restructured our school finance system back in 1994 with the passage of Proposal A, for folks who remember that, that was really meant to equalize school funding across the board because we had a really unequal school funding system, but it didn't deal with that facility piece. The facility piece was still left at the local level. So we still have those really big inequities when it comes to facilities.
So in terms of staying with appropriations for a moment, you're just dealing with one aspect of things, but the pie is a defined pie. You're dealing with the projected revenue for the coming year. It's not, we can't borrow at the state level in order to spend the way the feds do. So if you're spending more money in one area, you're taking it from another area. Is that correct?
So it's a little different for school aid dollars. So school aid dollars, we have a specific revenue stream that's just school aid. So we do have a defined pie, and it's about 21, $22 billion we're at right now of school aid dollars that are specifically marked for pre-K-12 schools in Michigan. When you talk about general fund, that's pretty much for everything else. But for those school aid dollars, that's the pie that we have to work with. And you're right, we don't like borrow additional money or anything. We're not able to do that. So we have to work within that to find revenue that we have available.
So what's the appropriations battle about?
We have to set our priorities. So if we have this much pie, we have to decide how to split it. And that's where the battle is. Figuring out what those priorities are, what we want to fund, how we want to fund it. a good example of that is the governor announced in her budget. I will try to be really high level on this because it gets really, really complicated really fast. But our retirement system for teachers, it's called MIPSers, and the healthcare portion of that is projected to be fully funded this upcoming fiscal year. And the state has been paying additional dollars into that system to get it to fully funded. Now that it's projected to be fully funded, the governor has proposed redirecting those dollars to other things. It's about $670 million, redirecting it for other uses within schools. And then there's a lot of debate around that. Like, should you do that? Should you reinvest it into the retirement system, which is not fully funded? Should you give a break to school employees who have also been paying in to get that system to fully funded, to districts who have also been paying in to get that system to fully funded? So there's a lot of debate going around about how that specific revenue should be spent, or if it should be spent the way the governor is proposing to spend it.
Okay, I have another question, maybe dumb. Now, the guys that are in prison, can we get these guys to go around and paint schools or whatever? And is that something that we could work on? I'd like to see, I mean, the guys housed in prisons are costing us how much per person? It's probably $20,000 a year. They get food, lodging, and everything. We'll let them work for it so our taxpayers can reap the rewards too. Let them start cutting the grass, paint things. I don't know. My suggestion when you go to Congress or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have like specifics on what work requirements are in prison in Michigan. I know generally there often are work projects within prisons, and I mean, it's arguable that it's like basically slave labor because they're paid basically nothing to do it, or nothing or next to nothing. So that's a little, questionable if we should be doing that. But that's all,
They could work on this. It could be a reward with early out. I mean, they're in for 20 years. You put in 10, 12 good years, you'll get 8 years out early, maybe. That'd be a good incentive to a lot of people, might,
there is a bill package called the Good Time Bill that is designed to be kind of what you're talking about, Ziggy. So for people who are incarcerated, who have shown through and again, I don't have the specifics in front of me, but through like continuing education and other things that they've done in prison, that and just like good behavior, that if they've earned time back, that they can be eligible for early parole. That package is being debated right now. We haven't voted on it yet, but there are folks who are working on it.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
I got it early out when I was in the Army. Gave me early out.
They're like, you're someone else's problem now.
No, that wasn't prison. That was not prison. Yeah.
Sure, it was an honorable discharge.
It was honorable discharge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got honorable discharge.
Regina, what's like a normal day for you? Like, as State Representative Weiss, like, you get up in the morning and then what happens?
Sure. Every day is a little different, but typically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're in Lansing usually. Mondays and Fridays, we're usually in district. So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, I typically have committee in the morning. So drive in for committee. And after committee, I'm usually in meetings for most of the day, especially this time of year. Like this time of year is particularly crazy again because of the budget. So we'll have like days where I have back-to-back 15-minute meetings like all day long. That's common this time of year. That's not super common other times a year. And then we're in session. Session on Tuesdays and Wednesdays start at 1:30. Session on Thursday starts at noon. We typically caucus on Tuesdays, so both Republicans and Dems will go into our respective caucuses and talk about what's on the agenda, any other issues that we need to discuss. Then we'll come out and we'll vote on whatever is being voted on. And if you ever come to Lansing and you like show up at 1:30 on a Tuesday, you'd probably be really confused because it'd look like nothing is happening because we're like waiting around for people to get there, or there's other like committees are running late. And so there's a lot of waiting around that happens. And then people will go and caucus. So then nothing will be happening because we'll be caucusing. And then you have to wait for both Republicans and Dems to come back from caucus. And then there may be also hold up delays because of negotiations that are happening on bills or other things where we're just like waiting for things to move. For those that don't know too, right now in the House, even though we have a majority, the Democrats have a majority in the House and in the Senate. In the House, we're currently at a 54-54 split temporarily because we had two members who ran in local elections in Warren and Westland for mayor in November and won their elections. So we were at 56-54. Those two members won their elections, so they vacated their seats. So we're at 54-54 right now. Because of House rules, we still maintain majority. In terms of like the Speaker of the House is still the Speaker of the House. I'm still chair of my committee. All the other Dems are still chairs of their committee. And then but that's challenging, obviously, to pass anything because you need 55 votes to pass anything. So any legislation that moves right now has to have bipartisan support in the House or it's not moving. So lately our session days have been pretty light. Most of our Thursday session days have been canceled. I still come in on Thursdays because I have Thursday committee, but most of our session Thursdays have been canceled because of that, at least for this month. And our special election for those seats, those two seats are scheduled for mid-April. And so we'll be back at full strength in about a month. And so it shouldn't be that disruptive, but it's kind of slow going right now. And it was rough at the beginning of the year when we started back up with 54-54. We had Republicans voting down their own bills. It was super weird. But we've kind of hit a stride and we've been able to get some stuff done. And so we're hoping to be able to continue that momentum for the next month.
You tell them that Zig Glazer, honorable discharge Vietnam veteran, wants everybody to vote on a bill based on whether it's good for us, not party-wise. Should
Yeah.
not be party-wise. Makes no sense.
Yes.
Agree.
You know, where does the redistricting issue stand? I know that's bounced back and forth, and the courts had kicked it back and said you've got to redraw it. It's not right. Where does that stand, and how does that affect you and us?
Yeah, so that does affect us. So we all know that we just went through redistricting. So we just got new districts that were drawn that we ran on for the first time in 2022. There was a lawsuit that was brought by some Detroit-based Democrats, no one from the House or the Senate, but just some former House members, Senate members, and other folks who are just politically involved and engaged in Detroit, brought a lawsuit against the Redistricting Commission, alleging that they violated the Voting Rights Amendment for some of these districts. Basically, that they diluted the Black vote in some of these districts, the way in which they were drawn. So there were 7 districts that the court, this is a federal court, 3-judge panel. There were 7 districts that the court identified, yes, this was a VRA violation. And the Redistricting Commission has to go back and redraw these 7 districts. They're all Detroit-based districts. Our district, House District 6, was not part of that lawsuit. But House District 7, which is directly to the east of us, was one of them, as well as House District 8 and several other districts in Detroit. And so when the Redistricting Commission went through a process to redraw these maps, they redrew, for most versions of the maps that they redrew, affected surrounding districts as well. And so, and then there was a period of they voted out 10 maps. There was a period of public comment that happened that wrapped up about 2 weeks ago. They voted out one map that they sent back to the court. And that is where it's at right now. So the map that got voted out and got sent back to the court, it was called the Motown Sound map. And in that version, Oak Park got drawn back together, because if you remember in the previous version, it was split at Coolidge. So Oak Park would be together except for Precinct 9, which they had drawn in, because Oak Park got split into 3 pieces. It was mostly our district, District 6, which was everything east of Coolidge, District 5, which was everything west of Coolidge, except for just Precinct 9, which is borders Greenfields, south of 9 Mile Road. That precinct got drawn in with Southfields. And then when they redrew this map, they put Oak Park back together, but they left that one Precinct 9 with Southfield. So all of Oak Park is back together except for Precinct 9. Royal Oak Township also got drawn back together with Oak Park. And then the rest of the district is Detroit. So it goes 8 Mile to 6 Mile, Livernois to Greenfield is the Detroit portion. There's a little section that goes a little further south, but it's pretty much 8 to 6 Livernois to Greenfield. So that would be the new, and it's a different number too. It's House District 5 would be the new number for that district. Now that it's at the court has given themselves until the end of the month to decide whether or not they believe the redistricting commission did what they were supposed to do. And if they decide that, then that will be the new map that will be running on in this election. If they decide that the court didn't, or if they decide that the redistricting commission did not do what they wanted them to do, they have a court-appointed special master who will redraw the maps, which honestly would be really bad, and very much the opposite of what we voted for when we asked for a nonpartisan redistricting commission, because that special master that's appointed by this court is from Brigham Young University, very conservative, has a history of drawing heavily Republican-leaning maps. So we could end up in a really awful situation.
How would that person get hired, though?
So it's appointed by the court, Republican judges, or Republican appointees anyway. So there's,
But doesn't nonpartisan mean something?
I know. It's a federal court. They don't have to listen to our Constitution. They can do whatever they want. So
Okay.
yeah, just being honest. But the good news, I know that sounds very doom and gloom. The good news is, from everything that I've heard from experts who are following this very closely, it looks pretty likely that they're going to just adopt the map that the commission voted out, which also, honestly, for partisan fairness isn't great. Like, it's worse than the one we currently have, but it's better than what the alternative would be. So it's not a lot worse, but it's slightly worse than the one we currently have. It takes one seat that would be considered a safe Dem seat and makes it more of a purple seat.
And so when are they gonna issue their opinion?
End of the month. So they, March 29th, I believe, was the date that they set for themselves to report out. We're hoping it'll be before then. Filing deadline is April 23rd. So it'd be great for folks to know. If people
Where
wanted
they're
to have the
running.
opportunity to move, they would need to know within 30 days of the filing deadline. So we're hoping that that could happen. The good news with the Motown Sound map that got voted out too is that it didn't draw any incumbents together, which honestly was kind of a miracle that didn't happen. But no current incumbents got drawn together.
So the more than likely we'll get to keep you as our state rep.
I mean, yeah, I live so close to you. It'd be very unlikely that I get drawn into.
I'm gonna separate Majestic out from everybody else.
Yeah.
You're in District 2.
Right. So it'll be news when it comes out, but feel free to reach out to me if you have more questions about redistricting. I hope, like I said, within the next few weeks, we should know for sure what that final map will look like. And it's likely to be what the commission voted out. And I'll
Um,
put in a link to the chat. I'll pull it up on the internet and put it in the chat so you can look at it too. The map that the commission voted out.
Which currently is the one where they put Oak Park back together, except for that little strip.
Yeah, precinct 9. Yep.
Okay,
What
which
a
like I feel
terrible
like the
job.
last thing that affected, we had a switch of the when we no longer had Charlie and he was replaced. That was like the last big fallout from the redistricting, right?
That was a totally different redistricting process because
Oh,
that happened at
never
the
mind.
county commission level. But yeah, that was the county commission does that themselves. They draw their own maps. So they don't have a voters not politician version. I mean, it's like Dave Woodward did it, you know. So they had their own redistricting process that they went through, but that was separate from ours.
Everything just seems so complicated.
Is the redistricting commission stay alive? Do they don't do this again until the next census, right? And then
Fingers
host
crossed.
commission?
Well, no, actually they have to do it again because it wasn't just the House maps that were affected by the lawsuit, it was also the Senate maps.
They're different.
So there's the state there. So there were 3 maps that the commission drew initially. It was the state house maps, the state Senate maps, and then the congressional maps. The lawsuit was for all 3 of the maps. The commission or the court only upheld, didn't consider the lawsuit for the or threw out the lawsuit about the congressional map, but they did uphold the lawsuit for the House and the Senate maps. So they were doing the House maps now because we're in an election. Like we need to know what our maps are because we're running. The Senate isn't up until 2026. And so once they're through with the House maps and that's all done, they will reconvene and rework the Senate maps as well. So we will go through this whole process again for the state Senate too. So that's going to change.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is better than teaching. No, Regina, thank you for all that you do. This is chaotic. I think there's a good question on this list, or one that I keep on looking at, and says there are so many issues that need attention, all seem of critical importance. How do you decide what to devote your time to? I mean, I know your education background puts you into education, but like, yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is, and it is a lot. So I kind of prioritize first and foremost my committee responsibilities. So the budget's the biggest one for me because that's my number one priority that I have to get done. And so that's the main thing I work on. And then any bills that we have that we're working on, and the bills that we decide to work on, it varies why. Sometimes it's an issue that's just really important to us, important to the district. Sometimes people bring issues to us and we work on bills around issues that constituents have brought to us. And so those we're always working on bills. Also just like constituent issues in general. We have a lot of people reach out to our office with like unemployment issues, or they need help getting through to a state department, or they're having other issues, various things. And so we make sure that we are responding to those quickly, making those connections. We kind of like, we're almost like we don't necessarily directly solve anyone's problem, but we always we try to connect them to the person who can solve their problem when they reach out to our office. And so that's a really big priority, responding to other constituent concerns too around legislation. We have a lot of folks reach out just to advocate for or against certain bills. So going through those letters, responding to those and considering people's thoughts on those. And then we also have a lot of different community groups. So obviously we have our community group. I'm familiar with you guys, been coming to these meetings forever, but there's like block clubs like this across the district. So I'm going and meeting with constituents, talking to them, figuring out what's going on, spend a lot of time doing that. So it varies. And then there's also the, so that's everything on the state side. There's also campaign side. I mentioned that I'm campaign chair, so I have a lot of responsibilities when it comes to fundraising for our caucus, helping a lot of our candidates that are running in all the different kind of campaign side things that go along with that as well.
With the Republican Democrat split being so tight, any possibilities for working across the aisle to get anything done?
Yeah, but we literally have to right now, as I mentioned. We can't, there are no other options. We have to work across the aisle to get things done. And there are like, I think we live in like very, very partisan times. And so it's really easy to just throw rocks across the fence at each other. But the good piece of news that I have, even though that like messaging, that's what it sounds like, we all hate each other and we're all trying to kill each other. There are a lot of like, or at least a few like normal Republicans who we work with, who I can work with and others can work with on legislation and try to get things done. Don't get me wrong, we got some wild ones too that that will like, for example, there is a state rep right now who was literally camped outside of the speaker's office for a week on a cot, demanding the Speaker of the House issue a formal apology to him for enacting a racist budget, which we enacted a year ago. And he said it was racist because it included money for minority-owned businesses. So that's sort of like, we deal with that end of it, but there are like normal Republicans who are there for the right reason. We might not agree on everything, but they're good reps. They're trying to do their job, and we are able to work across the aisle with some folks. Now, the minority leader, unfortunately for the Republicans, is not I mean, he's awful. And so that makes it a challenge. Because it's just, I think that's the leader and he kind of sets the tone for their caucus, and he has made it really hard to be able to work with their caucus. They issued a rule now that we're at a 54-54 split that they will vote. They have all agreed to vote no on everything unless at least half of their caucus plus one agrees to vote yes. So and that has also made it very challenging to be able to move legislation as well.
It's all these babies. Like, why can't people think for themselves? That's not a real question, but it's a statement. There's a question about term limits, and I think there's a few questions kind of on here that go all with that. Where do term limits stand now? How does it affect you? What do you plan on keeping on running? And do you have goals before the next election? Things you'd like to see happen? You roll 3 questions into one.
Yeah, so we changed term limits through a ballot initiative last election, 2022, Proposal 1, that also added financial disclosure requirements for the legislature and the governor and the attorney general, secretary of state, and amended our term limits. So I wouldn't say it extended our term limits, it changed our term limits. So prior to what we just passed in 2022, term limits for the legislature where you could serve up to 3 terms in the House, 2-year terms, so 6 years, and up to 2 terms in the Senate. Those are 4-year terms, so up to 8 years in the Senate. The amended term limits that we voted on in 2022 changed it to that you can serve up to 12 years in either chamber. So you could serve 12 years in the House, you could serve 12 years in the Senate, you could serve
a combo.
Any mix or match, but up to 12 years total that you could serve in the legislature, which I think was a good change, particularly for the House. Having a 2-year or 3-term limits, 3-term limit was a challenge for the House in particular. That 6 years, you spend 2 years just figuring out what you're doing. You spend like 2 years getting kind of good at what you're doing and like getting into a groove, and then you spend 2 years looking for another job. So, it I think it made a lot of sense to change that, because that revolving door made it really challenging to work on anything that was long-term focused, and made it challenging to be able to work across the aisle, because you don't build relationships because people are constantly rolling in and rolling out. So I'm really hopeful that that will bring a little bit more stability to the House. Plus, assuming that we're able to keep our majority, we have Joe Tate as our speaker. Every term the speaker changes. Everyone loves Joe Tate. If we maintain a majority, I'm sure Joe Tate will still be the speaker, and it would be nice to have that sort of also that continuity of leadership within each chamber. You have the caucus and the majority votes on their speaker every session, so that could theoretically change, but assuming that we kept our majority, I don't think that that would likely change for the House. And so it'd be nice to have a little bit more stability particularly in the House. It'll help in the Senate too, but I think it will be particularly beneficial for the State House.
And where are you? This is your third year? No, am I way off?
I'm in
on
my
this?
second term.
Okay.
Year
Three's close to 2.
3. Year 3.
Oh, it is year 3. So okay, I was right. And do you plan, like right now, are you thinking we're gonna keep on going?
I'm thinking, I don't know. I haven't really made any full commitments to anything. Assuming, I'll keep doing this for as long as it makes sense for me to keep doing it. But I won't lie, it's a lot. It's a lot with kids. I'm gone most evenings, and it's not super fun. But as you know, at this point, I haven't really made any decisions on that front.
Can't you just drop them off in the caucus? Um,
That would be
I brought him to
good.
Lansing one time. It's not a super baby friendly place.
Sam?
The legislature doesn't have daycare?
Yeah.
No, oh my God, I wish we did. We joke about it. A lot of us have babies. It'd be nice, but no, we don't.
Wait, can't you just take some of the pie?
Well, so we're actually having this debate right now, not for the legislature, but overall around childcare. It's a big need, like for me and for my family. When we had our twins, my husband stopped working because we would have spent more money on childcare than he would have made in his salary, because childcare is just so expensive, and it just did not make financial
Everything's
sense.
expensive.
Yeah, particularly with babies, with twins, that's really expensive. But childcare in general is just very expensive. And we have a lot of workforce shortage issues in the state, in the country, but particularly in Michigan. And solving our childcare issues would also help with that. I'm sure my husband would like to go back to work if he was able to go back to work. There are probably a lot of people who are in that position. And we're trying to figure that out. Childcare doesn't fall directly in my bucket for school, but it's related in terms of how childcare interacts with pre-K, and the way our pre-K system works. And so I'm working with the chair of LEO, the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, as well as DHHS, Health and Human Services, to try to see if we can get more money to shore up our childcare system. It interplays through our GSRP program, our Great Start Readiness program. It interplays with our state pre-K system, because a lot of childcare providers also provide pre-K. And so I'm working with those two chairs to try to make sure we can backfill some more money into our childcare system to try to make sure we have enough funding to be able to move towards a more universal public pre-K system.
I mean, shouldn't we be loaded with all the marijuana?
Oh, yeah. So some of that money goes to the locals. A lot of that money goes to the locals, which is good because they need it. We do get some funding through school aid for for that and for like we get a lot of ICE money. So we get like the gambling money, lottery money. I think there's a common misconception that like, oh, we did the lottery, so schools are funded. And we do get the lottery money does come to schools, but it's a small portion of the school revenue we actually generate from the lottery. So there's a lot of different funding sources that come for schools in our state.
So what I'm hearing is Oak Park needs a dispensary and a casino.
Yeah, no, I did not say that.
We'll get to work on this. Now
That was
Walgreens
from
is
Mayor, I
closing,
said that.
everyone. Like, Marion's not
Corner
here.
of 9 Mile and Coolidge. Here it comes.
Your new downtown.
Regina, can you speak to, I've been reading about this new department called Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement and Potential, that's under the executive branch, and that the executive branch has been defunding the Department of Education in order to move the funds under the executive branch. Could you speak to what that's all about?
Sure, MyLeap. This is a shorthand term for that department. I can never remember what it stands for, so I appreciate you saying the whole name. Yes, I'm gonna back up to give a little. I feel like I talk too much, but I'm gonna give a little bit of context for why MyLeap was created. So, in Michigan, all state departments report directly to the governor, except for the Department of Education, because of the way our governance structure works for the Department of Ed in Michigan. The Department of Education reports to the state superintendent, who is appointed by the state school board. And we vote for the state school board separately. So they're a separate branch of government, independent of the legislature, independent of the governor. They appoint the state superintendent. State superintendent runs the Department of Ed, but we fund the Department of Ed through the legislature and through the governor's office. So there's always been a little tension there. And not just with our current governor, but with every governor. Every governor has wanted to have more control over what the Department of Ed does. But it's just not how it's structured. So Governor Whitmer proposed and has created a new department, MyLeap, that would remove some of the responsibilities from the Department of Ed that aren't directly related to pre-K-12. So out of school time, higher ed, childcare, anything that's really not directly pre-K-12 got removed from the Department of Ed and put into this new department, MyLeap. And it's not just Department of Ed. They pulled from several other departments. So there were some things that got pulled out of labor and economic opportunity, LEO, and put into MyLeap. Some things got pulled out of licensing, regulatory affairs, and some other departments and put into this new department. So the governor created this new department. The idea behind it was to be able to streamline some of these services by having it all in one place under MyLeap. We'll see. It's a brand new thing. We still have not, again, the governor proposed how it's going to be funded. We haven't necessarily agreed to that yet because we haven't put out our budget. Senate hasn't put out their budget. So that will all be, again, kind of negotiated, but the department itself does exist. We just have not decided yet how it will be funded. Some of it has some funding now through some transfers that were done, but overall, how that will be structured, how many, we call them FTEs, full-time equivalent employees, basically staff, how many staff members they'll have. We haven't decided all that yet. The governor has made a proposal, but we'll ultimately decide how that works.
So it's not a complete defunding of the Department of Education. It's taking some of it to put into this new thing.
It's not. And so the department will tell you if you like, and I have sympathy and I agree with them, and we do as much as we can, but I can't, as chair of the Department of Ed budget, I cannot decide how much money I get to spend on my department. I get that amount of that is agreed to at a higher level than me, and I'm told this is how much money you have for your department. You decide how to spend it. the department likes to point out that they're in charge of 20% of the state funds, and they have 1% of the workforce to be able to manage those funds. And I'm always advocating for more money into MDE to help be able to do that. Now, it is true that the governor's proposed shifting some of those employees out of the department and shifting some of that funding out of the department, but they've also proposed shifting those responsibilities out with them. So theoretically, it shouldn't be a net defunding of the department because we're not adding things for them to do and taking away their employees. Those responsibilities are going with those employees. But that being said, I would argue they still need more money to be able to do the things that they still have to do, which is administer grants for local school districts, which is a big part of what they do. And whenever they don't do it well, we hear about it because school districts want their money and they want to be able to spend it in a timely fashion, which is totally legit. And we want to try to make sure that that is happening. So to answer your question, in summary, it is a new department. We still have to decide exactly how it's going to be funded, but it's not, I wouldn't exactly call it a defunding of the Department of Ed. It's more of a shifting of funding and responsibilities, but we also do need to better fund the Department of Education.
That's why we're opening a casino. It is 8:07 on my clock here. Do we want to extend a little? Regina, I don't know if you can stay even. I mean, we're kind of at about an hour from where we started. So I would leave that in the hands of people here. Shall we continue the discussion, or we can wrap it up just as easily? I know the State of the Union is on at 9 tonight.
If you're all right, we call it floor time before bed, and I hear my children banging on the door, so I should.
So we're all going to get on the floor.
It's time for them to run around and be crazy before we put them to bed to try to get all their.
We're all going to Regina's house. No, that's great. Regina, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This has been really insightful. There's just so much. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yeah.
I know that they teach us civics in 9th grade right now, or that's the last time I think I had a class on government. So it's always fascinating. And like, I watch the news every day, just about in some capacity. You're like, okay. But hearing about all of this, it's a lot. So thank you for fighting the good fight. And
thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. If anyone needs to get a hold of Regina, I'm sure most of you can figure out how to, but she probably will drop her email into the chat.
I'm doing that right now. So I'm putting in my my email, my cell, and my office number if anyone needs to get a hold of me. Great.
We're going to come to the caucus party. Wait, it's probably not open.
You're not allowed. I'm sorry. And also, you don't want to be there. So you're welcome. I also don't want to be there. Caucus is my favorite time of day. I just put my contact information in the chat, and I also did put in the chat the link to both the map where you can like zoom in and kind of see street by street, and then also like the PDF that's just easier to look at.
Great.
I put both links in the chat for the new proposed districts as well.
Thank you. It's helpful. It's something to click on. Everyone, have a great night. Thanks for coming.
I think Dawn has something.
Dawn
has something.
Yeah, the city is looking for a muralist to apply for the library mural that is going to be installed on the east side of the library. So I just put a link for you to share. If you know any muralists, please have them apply to our committee for the library mural. And we'll be deciding that, I want to say sometime in April. I think April 10th is one of our meetings, and we'll look over the applications and make decisions.
Don, are you on the library board?
No, I'm on a mural board. It's like an ad hoc part of,
Cool.
yeah, it's like the city, because it's a city building, it's a different committee, offshoot of the Arts, Culture, and Diversity Committee. So I put the link there. If you guys know of anyone, please share it, have them submit their work. I met an artist well, I didn't meet him, but I met his friend today, and he and I are going to connect. He's done murals all over Detroit. The one I saw recently was down in the new Bagley Greenway that connects southeast Detroit to the river. So it's over there by kind of like on the other side of Honeybee Market, and it takes you down to the river. There's a mural of his right on the wall before you get to the graffiti museum, which is the viaduct, which has all kinds of old graffiti artists. They saved all their work, but his work is there too. So I'm excited to have him apply to our ad hoc mural committee for the library.
What
That's
about the
great.
artist who did the dog park, and he did like the Bobcat Bonnies and all those?
Yeah, he's been helpful for the committee, giving us information. I'm not sure if he's available, but he's definitely free to sign up to be considered for the mural.
Was there?
Yeah, a fee, because I have some artists that would be interested in that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're paying. Yep. So it's, I mean, I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to give a price, but it's over 10 grand to do that.
Oh hell!
Oh.
Let's paint a mural, everyone.
Yeah, well, here's the thing.
So
It is
part
a
of the
brick.
neighborhood association.
What's that?
We can all be artists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I used to
Advertising for a
do-
casino. It's perfect.
I used to do murals when I was in high school and junior high school, but since I'm on the committee, I don't think that's appropriate. But it's been a while too. I'm not as good as the ones that are out there now.
There's
Um,
a lot of costs involved in those murals. 10 grand isn't going to have the artist walk away with a grand sum.
Yeah.
I know
Have
that.
y'all seen a Jackson Pollock?
I said at least 10 grand. I'm not
Oh.
giving the top number, but and it doesn't have to cover the entire wall. You know, it's a huge wall. So there's some ideas out there of maybe something that would sort of interlace between the windows and spread out, but it has to incorporate some of Oak Park history. It has to have something to do with the library. So there's a lot of motion with it
Criteria.
that has to fit into the parameters the city wants to
Hey,
look at.
can we stay on, members of the steering committee, to figure out a time to meet next for our
Sure.
steering committee?
Yes.
Sure.
I
Zig,
mean,
did you have
anybody's
something?
welcome to stay, but talk about
I'm good.
caucus meetings. This will rival that.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you,
Regina.
Kelly.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Kelly, for joining us.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you,
Good
Rita.
to meet her
Thank
too.
you
Have you ever
both.
found
Oh, what a cutie. Look at him.
Aw.
That's Stella.
Aw.
Sometimes they come to the clinic, but thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate this.
Aw.
Actually, really
Thank you.
beneficial. And Regina was amazing, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're
Yeah.
always welcome
Thank
to
you,
join
Kelly.
us. We'll keep you on our
Bye.
email list if you want.
Yep, and then I'll text you. I have a muralist that might be. I mean, she's big time, but maybe she'd be interested in doing some like side work.
Sure.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good
Bye
night.
for now.
So I know you guys like Thursdays.